Welcome. I'm super excited once again to have a great person sitting next to me as we go through this amazing topic that we're talking about here at CARES, the Campus of Hope. Jean Richards is with me today. Jean, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
This coffee with the president at CARES has just come up in the last 3, 4 months. And it's always fun to have this hour of time to be able to explore different ideas and concepts that not only our donors, our volunteers, our staff have for this amazing, amazing campus of hope. And so, having you here, obviously, you've been serving on what we call the Legacy Committee as part of the board of directors for CARES, and you have been an intricate part in helping us design what we have now called our legacy giving. And how do we give today? How do we give tomorrow or through the course of our life? And then what does it look like at the end of our journey and in our wishes that we want? And so you've actually taken me personally through this, which I'm very thankful for. And of course, making sure that our wishes are met at the end is always important. So tell us a little bit first off about you
Okay.
and why I would have you here as the professional.
Well, I am an attorney, but specifically, I'm an estate planning attorney. So I meet every day with individuals and families who are interested in putting together their plan for their family, getting their personal legal documents in place, sometimes called an estate plan. Uh, I also help make those plans work. So as people get to the end of life, the family then isn't quite sure how to make that plan work or needs assistance, I step in and help. And so I've been doing this almost 30 years. So I've talked to a lot of families, a lot of people who are very interested in supporting their favorite charities. And so I think we're here today to talk about how do you do that most efficiently and answer any questions that come up along the way.
Yeah, I love that. I think when we think about giving to our favorite charities, a lot of questions come up.
Hmm?
And so, how does it work in regards to that February timeline of the big government IRS, date? How does it work? Like if I give X amount of dollars to a charity.
So I think you're talking about charitable deductions or
Hmm.
charitable contributions. And it's interesting, the laws have changed on that a good bit in recent years. They kind of took away our charitable deduction, and then now we've got some of that back. But there's several ways that can be done. What most people want is the tax advantage. How do I get a benefit personally while also supporting my favorite charities? And that can be done through primarily cash gifts or gifts of property, things, real estate. These days, a lot of people are making contributions directly from their IRAs and other retirement accounts. So by doing that, if they do it in a timely fashion, actually that has to be done before the end of the year, before tax season rolls around, then they
The year
can.
prior,
Right. So you said February. I think you were talking about
April.
April.
Yeah, I was talking maybe
You're
business
you're
filings.
you're very organized. I'm doing my taxes in February. I wish I could say that. Um,
I want to be on vacation maybe in April. That's why I
yeah.
want to make sure my stuff's done in February.
So real, but whether you're filing in February because you're so organized and efficient, or you're waiting till April or the extension, either way, you're wanting to capture the donations you made to charity the prior year ending in December. And there's quite a few ways to do that. Again, from cash to property to automobiles
Yeah, well,
to
let's break
retirement
that down
accounts.
a little bit. Obviously, cash,
Mhm.
we know people just write a check and they donate it. Now, is there an amount that the IRS stops and says you're not able to go over this amount to use it? I mean, you can go over the amount, but how much will they recognize as being a deduction?
So starting this year, 2026, there's if you do not itemize your deductions, there's an automatic $1,000 um, deduction up to 1,000 or $2,000 for a couple. Now, remember, if you're giving more than $250 in cash, you need a letter from the organization acknowledging that gift. if you're going to actually itemize your charitable deductions, you're going to need to uh, be over 0.5% of your AGI, your adjusted gross income.
Income.
And so once you get above that number, so I think it was like for $160,000 of AGI, it was like anything, the first $800 didn't count, then everything over that did. If you're giving, you might have to have an appraisal if you're giving, something worth more than $5,000. I always say, I'm the attorney. I help make it happen. I'm not the accountant that does the actual return. So I do encourage people to
Sure.
have a team of professionals. Uh, if they want to give charitably, figure out the ways to give. And in this case, if you're doing like annual giving, like while you're still breathing, during the year, you want to talk with your financial advisor and especially your accountant, because there are so many ins and outs. And these are brand new numbers that came out for this year. So I think everybody's getting acclimated to that.
Yeah. Well, and I think
But
too, every year there's always a little nuance and
Mhm,
changes. You always want to make sure you're seeking, the tax experts.
absolutely.
Yeah, so let's go into past cash. So, of course, we've here at CARES, we've even received someone trying to donate a mobile home,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
But we can also donate real estate or cars. And so each one of those is a different type of way of doing
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and I think that trigger amount was like 5,000,
Yeah,
right?
that's
If
what
it's
requires an appraisal.
correct. Yeah.
So the correct.
And I remember really understanding that. And obviously, basic people don't know what those parameters are. And
Mm,
so when Jean had mentioned the 5,000, as long as the item that you're donating is 5,000 or less in value, there's no appraisal that's
correct.
required.
Right.
Yeah, and then the nice thing too is that you can take that deduction of whatever that is, even with the appraisal or without the appraisal, over the course of the next 5 years.
True.
So you can strategize in regards to how that one-time donation can be spread out over 5 years.
Yeah, that could be really impactful when they're very large gifts, especially if, mobile homes, real estate, especially real
Real
estate.
estate.
Those can be pretty significant in
Yeah.
value.
Being a real estate broker, as long as you've probably been an attorney, I just got started when I was younger. Yeah, that's
Okay.
the key.
Nice.
And so one of the things I realized selling real estate is we've taken in real estate lots, we've taken in
Mm.
cemetery plots, we've taken
Oh,
in
that's a unique one.
yeah, rental homes. A lot of times what ends up happening is people don't realize that the tool is out there for them to do that. So
Mm,
we've had people that lived in other states, other countries inherit something
mm,
and they just aren't wanting to deal with it. And so they literally sign it over to their, and name their charity of choice. And it's
mm.
nice here at CARES that we have the resources, we have the experts
Yeah.
to be able to guide people through if that's the type of donation that they want to leverage for CARES.
And so I think you're saying it's critical that people maybe give you a heads up that this
Mm.
is coming your way, right? I mean, at least there's an element of planning to this, and so it is nice that CARES has a whole stable full of other professionals, from tax to legal to investment advice. So I would encourage people to get out ahead of it, and contact this organization for help and how to give their gift.
Yeah, because different organizations that are out there aren't able to sometimes have that background, like we have here at CARES. So let's take us into that next stage where you walk somebody through, and we can
Mhm.
even use me as an example, right?
Okay.
Uh, is I'm thinking about what are my wishes for my legacy? What are my wishes that I want to take place in regards to, and how does CARES fit into my giving of what that looks like.
Well, first of all, you have to have a heart for giving. And when you decide it's more than just my time that I'm giving presently, yes, I may make a cash gift during the year, but I want to make an impact at the end of my days. Um, there, you're going to need to decide how much, well, maybe which charities first, and if it's CARES, so how much am I going to give to CARES and in what manner? Uh, there's actually a few different ways to do this. and it can be quite simple to do. And I'll even go out and start with saying you don't even really need an attorney to do it. Most people, when they hear about the word legacy, they assume it's a complicated legal structure and it's going to cost a lot of money, and I don't even like attorneys, so why would I want to sit down with one? But it really doesn't have to be all that involved. And
Okay.
the important thing is to make sure you mention it. For example, sometimes when people come to see me, again, we're at the planning stage. Someone says, you know what, this charity is important to me, and I want to include them in what I leave behind. How do I do that? And most people will think, oh, I need a will. All right,
Right.
fair. That's an option. That's one of the options. And so I don't know how far you want me to go into this, but the
I
way
want
I
it all, Gene. I want them to know everything.
well, let's just talk about how to do it,
Okay.
because from the simple to the complex. Again, the important thing is I want people to hear is if you want to give to CARES, it's very easy to do it. It doesn't have to take a lot of time or a lot of money or a lot of planning. There's some steps to take. So I think the way I approach this with my clients is I call it the 3-bucket shuffle. All right. So, and the reason I use the 3 buckets is because when someone passes on, we can sort everything they leave behind into 3 buckets. All right. No more than 3.
Bucket
They
one.
might use 1, they might use 3,
Right.
but there's only 3 available. So bucket 1 is going to be anything that has a named beneficiary or that has a surviving co-owner. For CARES purposes, we want the word beneficiary. So if I pass away on this financial account, life insurance policy, retirement account, can be anything that you can put a name on, it says, I want to give 25% to CARES. And then the rest of it, something else. It could be 5%, it could be 1%. But I'm listing CARES as a beneficiary.
So let me give you an example. So I have a life insurance policy
Mhm.
and I fill out the forms
Yep.
when I get the life insurance policy. And there's a line there that says beneficiary.
Right.
Is that the line you're referencing?
Yes. So I'm on a springboard from that.
Okay.
You won't be able to see it really, but before I came here this morning,
Mm-hmm.
I actually went online and looked up Fidelity's. So
Which
this
is
is
a
a
large company.
large company. A lot of people around here have
Mm-hmm.
Fidelity. This is their beneficiary form. I downloaded it on from the internet. So I went on my computer
Without an attorney.
I mean, I am an
Right.
attorney. So I kind of like told myself I wasn't an attorney for a few minutes, but literally just went online and looked for beneficiary change form. And so we get this form that says beneficiaries, and this one's for a non-retirement account.
Non-retirement. Mm-hmm.
Now, so this could apply to life insurance, but technically, if you have an IRA, you're going to have a different form. But to your point, it's pretty much this simple. Tell them who's the account owner. Okay, I am. Put my name and information in there. Which accounts? So I could have more than one,
Just
right?
listed the
So let's
account
say I have
numbers.
one account. I've got a Fidelity investment account. It's not an IRA. It's my account. I put the information in there. And then this was to your point. There's usually 2 categories of beneficiaries. There's the first tier, what we call the primaries. So they get it first. And then you're going to have your contingents, which are if the people I named first are not available, then I want to go to the contingent people who are going to take.
So this document actually has the longest life form, right?
Yeah.
Of what you're trying to do.
Right.
So the person that has the account lists their beneficiaries, and then the second beneficiaries is if that first beneficiary is no longer with us.
Right. So, for example, for myself, being married, I have my spouse as my primary on anything. She expects that. If she is not living when I'm gone, then they're going to drop to my backups or my contingents. So you can put CARES in this scenario at the top. You could say, and you can choose, this one has a space for 4 with percentages. So if I have 3 kids and I want CARES to be my 4th, I can decide how much
You could
each
do
one gets.
25, 25, 25, and then list cares as
Yeah,
25%.
absolutely. Or split up however you want. Um, so what we're pointing out though, and then you just sign it
It's that simple.
and send it and send it. And for many people, you can actually do this online on your account. So every year, when we're looking at having to re-up our, employee benefits through the company, one of the steps is you have to go through your beneficiary. So I'm every year at least reminded to do that. So this does not require
An
an
attorney.
attorney, and it stays in place for a long time. So this is bucket one. Very simple, very straightforward. I can change it at any time. I could fill it out today, come back next month and say, no, no, no. I want to change that and
Mhm.
just do it again. I've not had to talk to anybody other than fill out a form.
Well, and you recommend that once a year, people should sit down and take a
Mhm.
look at, not only their retirement accounts, the beneficiaries, where they want, their legacy if something happens and what's going on with that. But we even say your homeowner's insurance, how are you on your mortgage? It's kind of like that once a year housekeeping financial steps. And this is one of those things
Right,
that if you decide you want to change,
right,
right? Or someone gets you upset and you want to change your
right. Yes,
beneficiary,
that
right?
happens a lot.
Yeah, you can download the form
So,
literally directly from the site.
so remember, that is correct. Simple, straightforward. The problem is it's only one of the three buckets. Don't forget that. So
Right.
there's two other buckets. All
Mhm.
right. We're going to use this as this bucket two.
All right.
Bucket two is going to be a trust. You hear them called a living trust, revocable trust, but an estate planning trust if they have one. So we
So
had,
before you jump into that, irrevocable
well, that's different. Irrevocable means I cannot change it.
versus revocable.
Revocable means I can modify it just like this beneficiary designation at any time. The difference is this one you should have a lawyer's assistance with.
Okay.
You did not need it with this form. We'll come back to that, but this is a living trust, revocable trust, meaning they can change it over the course of their lifetime if they wish. All right, so that's bucket two. Bucket three is everything else. And I want to go ahead and list these two buckets because then we're going to put all three together.
Mhm.
Bucket three is anything that wasn't by beneficiary or was not handled by a trust, because a lot of people don't have a trust, right? So they just have beneficiaries and everything else. Everything else is probate.
It's almost like bucket two is the planned purposes, right? So bucket one is the simple changes on beneficiary.
Yeah.
Bucket two is your planned wishes. You meet, you figure it out. This is what you want to do. And bucket three is I haven't done anything. And now we have to find out how that looks.
Right. So, and by the way, the third bucket, the probate one, and we're going to take some questions, I think, here in a minute, but the
Yep.
probate one is where wills work. And that's the reason I wanted to talk about bucket three. We'll call this our will today. Wills only work in bucket three. So we have three possible buckets. So, and the reason I raise this is because um, they don't touch each other. And I hear people say, well, I have the cares in my will. Okay. But if everything's happening out of bucket one or out of bucket
The will is
two,
irrelevant
the
at
will
that point.
doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So that is something that confuses a lot of people. Say, well, I need it in my will. Well, not necessarily. About bucket one or maybe bucket two. And trusts are a more comprehensive planning tool. So usually those mean we're looking at all the pieces of a person's financial puzzle from bucket one to bucket three and making sure it works, because trusts require that you fill the bucket. So I actually had a conversation this morning with someone. Unfortunately, his sister has a trust. She is end stage of life. And we were trying to figure out what's in the bucket. And he just kept saying, well, everything's in the bucket. Well, no, because you just told us about an IRA. You just told us about a bank account that's in her name.
They weren't
They
actually
weren't in
physically
here.
put into
So,
that bucket.
right, because they were all worried about what this bucket said, and frankly, probably not using it. So why do I raise the three bucket shuffle? When you're wanting to give to a charity, there's a spectrum of easy peasy, to
Mhm.
I'm going to need some help. And usually when you need some help, it's because maybe you want deeper planning. Maybe you want to say, I would like to use this at CARES for certain purposes. You're not going to do that on a beneficiary form. It just asks for the name.
It's just a transfer of the wealth.
Just a transfer at death. It just happens. If you go through a trust or a will, because some people on purpose go to probate, either one, you're going to be able to set some parameters for, how this is done and when it goes out.
Right, more specific wishes.
Yes, correct.
Right. So, for instance, for me, having two kids, two children, my biggest thing with the trust is I have businesses, and then I have my personal assets, of course, and then I have my retirement. And what does all of that look like based on specifically what I'm looking? And then I bring in cares or other places that I want to give. And so being able to align each wish on a piece of paper that's very clear, a trust is a good instrument to use,
It is.
correct?
Yeah.
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 And so one of the things I think that people forget is to actually use the trust. The trust is the owner of those assets. So for instance, if my home, when it's sold, is going to be recognized by the trust has to be the owner of that home. And we see this a lot in real estate, right? Because people put their home in the trust, and so the trust owns it. And so when they go to sell it, they're like, "No big deal. I can sign my name. Good
Right.
trill." Well, not correct. Yes, you'll be signing,
Right.
but you're not signing as an individual. You're signing
Owns.
because the trust owns the
Right.
home.
Right.
Right. And so a trust has the ability to be a living document
Yes.
as you continue to live your journey, just realizing that people always have to go back to reference what their trust says.
Yes.
Because we see that a lot.
Well,
They forget.
interesting story, if I might just drive this
Love
home.
your
So
stories.
I had an elderly, a lady passed away, and I think it was her sister was coming in. So in her will, she said, "I want this to go to a charity." Very passionate about this charity. It was like 50%. I want 50% of everything I own, including my life insurance, to go to this charity. Big letters in the will, but it's got to happen. And then we looked at the beneficiary designation,
And
and it went to like a niece or somebody, related to her. It said nothing about the charity. And there was a lot of frustration because everybody knew she wanted half of this life insurance policy to go to the charity, but she didn't fill out her beneficiary correct.
so what happened?
Well, it went to the niece. Because even though
Even though it was
right,
in the
because
will.
these buckets don't touch each other, right? This is the instruction manual for what goes through probate. The beneficiary form controls whatever it's attached to. So that's the reason sometimes planning, it's good to speak with a professional
Mm.
because we see a bigger picture. And so it's entertaining sometimes to educate people on, well, you think you're doing this, but you're really not. So we need to realign the pieces to make sure it goes to your charity.
I think that's one of the best things I ever did was sitting down with you and filling out that document, right? That
Yes.
asks me all the questions I
Right.
didn't think I wanted to ask, but needed to be asked. And doing it in the privacy of my own home with
Mhm.
myself,
Yeah.
and then bringing you that document. And it's interesting as my life has changed, we just modify that trust, right? So a trust is, when I look at it, it's more like that living document, almost becomes part of my overall picture of what my life is currently. And if something happened to me, what my life will look like, obviously the assets, what those life forms are, and where do they go.
Right.
So having cares as part of that trust was a big thing for me to make sure
Yes.
that those wishes were clear. And so as donors here at cares, we want to make sure that they understand that we have those resources to be
Sure.
able to do that. It doesn't mean you have to do a trust.
No.
Jean actually just mentioned bucket one is if they decide that maybe they want their life insurance policy, 50% of their life insurance policy, to go to cares. And what would end up happening is in the beneficiary form, they'd have the first person,
Right.
right, for
Right.
50%, and then they'd list cares
Cares.
as that second piece. It's
Correct.
that simple.
It's that simple.
All right, awesome. Well, Jean, I know we have a question,
Sure.
and so wanted to know, is there anything else you want to talk about those great three buckets?
Well, I think I don't know if I'd add anything else because we don't want it to be confusing. I think the objective is to tell people there's a spectrum of planning, and you don't have to have a lot of money. You can have a bank account and a checking and savings account, and you just want to include CARES in that. Many people may not know or think about the ability to designate beneficiaries on your savings account, on your CDs. Just go to the bank and tell them what you want to do, and they
It's
will
that
help you
simple.
do it. So I don't want people, what I'm trying to do is make sure this is available to everybody. This is not millionaires. This is not people with buku money, or just tons of different assets. Yes, hopefully they will have some interest in supporting charities as well, be very philanthropic. But this is just for your everyday person. It
Mhm.
does not have to be complicated. You do not have to spend a lot of time.
And don't be afraid of
So,
it.
and
That's
don't
the
be
thing.
afraid of it.
The
Right.
biggest thing is just reach out and say, this is what I'd like to have a discussion about. And education is the key, right? When we educate consumers, they're better decision makers.
Maybe one last visual. Um, People ask me what kind of lawyer I am all the time. Like they think, you're a lawyer. I'm like, well, there's two kinds of lawyers in my
This will be a
view.
good one.
No. There's hand slappers. These
Oh,
are the ones you see the billboards about, and they have big advertisements. They're smacking people to get money. We'll take them down. We'll sue them. We'll get
right.
money for you. I call those the hand slappers. Then you have hand holders, which is an estate planner, someone like me who we're friendly, right? We are there to help people. And so do not be intimidated from working with an attorney, because most of the ones that do this type of work,
They're more consultative.
they're more consultative. We're there to help people. And we actually take great joy in helping people figure out this thing they want to do. And that's one thing. CARES, again, is a resource. I know have multiple attorneys that you can direct people
Mhm.
to, and so they should ask for help if they're interested in doing that.
Nice. So we have a question.
Actually, I think you may have answered it. I think that what can cause a lot of confusion for people is you want to stay out of probate.
Oh,
And people don't realize that can take a really long time if you don't have everything written down or acknowledged in some way. And that can not only cost time, but can cost money. And then that is
Yeah.
sociology.
and emotional time, right? Emotional time is as expensive.
Sounds like the trust is ultimately the best advantage so that everything can be in the trust and then everything is clear. Is that correct?
So the question on the table, in case it wasn't picked up from the audience, is um, it, I'm going to generalize it. Should people most people want to stay away from probate. And it sounds like maybe the trust is the best solution of all, because probate takes a long time and it's costly and it can take years. So I have a slightly different view of probate because I do a lot of probate work.
Mhm.
Probate gets a bad reputation. The thing, and I usually hear, well, what I just heard, it costs a lot, takes forever, and people fight in court. Well, as to the fighting one, if people are fighting in probate court, they were fighting before they ever got there. The court is where we resolve
It's a
the
meeting
issue,
of the
right?
minds.
But
Mhm.
at its core, probate is just the legal process that we move. If you left behind your $2 million pen,
Mhm.
you know, um,
And you didn't
who
li
gets it?
right.
On a beneficiary form, we know who gets it. There's a name. In a trust, we know who gets it, and we don't need the court to handle a trust if it's done right. So what if it goes to probate? Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. First of all, we're going to ask, did they have a will? Because a will tells us, where does this pen go? And then it's just walking through the process. And unless there's a fight over who should get the pen, you're not even ever going to see a judge. It's all paperwork in probate court. Now, yes, it takes a few months to get from start to finish, but frankly, a trust takes a few months to work through as
Mhm.
well. So yes, I'm on a mission to help people realize probate's not awful. The state doesn't take a big portion of the gift or the money, doesn't cost a huge amount in legal fees. it does cost extra. So most people want to avoid probate because they just don't like the sound of it, or they had a bad experience as a family. But I want to emphasize there's nothing wrong with having a will and allowing things to go through probate. Okay, it's not the end of the world, at least in my opinion. But maybe that's just because I do a lot of probate and it's good business for
Right.
me.
Well,
But
and if someone disagrees, obviously, with a will or how the, even how the trust. I mean, yeah, trust is a more secure document, but
right,
all you need is one person to
right. So
disagree, and it's going to end up over in probate anyway.
which surprises people to find out all it takes is that one person who was going to fight the will to fight the trust, and this slides over to probate because probate has control of how
Mm.
trusts are handled. But if you're doing your plan in advance, we're not talking about the problems of giving. We're talking about how to coordinate the three buckets. But it was a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Is the trust the best tool? And it's the best tool if that's what a person needs. But
Mm-hmm.
not everybody needs a trust because maybe their situation is not that complicated.
Right.
And
And as we age, sometimes we don't always keep those assets, right?
yeah,
I know when I was going through, when my mom was at the end of her life, she was very clear. She was giving away things to my nieces, my nephews, her grandchildren, before she passed, because she wanted them to, one, for she wanted to see the enjoyment of the giving,
right,
right?
right.
And two, for them to be able to use that asset. So you have that as well. So I think it really comes down to is this is a very personal journey, and each
Sure.
person is a little bit different of
Exactly.
what they have. And today we just want to talk about the ease of how simple it is to be able to give to CARES, to be able to have a retirement account, a savings account, a checking account, where they ask you that question. Here's your beneficiary form. Who would you like on that? That is the opportunity to think to yourself, what other assets do you want to be able to have CARES benefit from? And then if you have more complicated wishes, right, or multiple businesses, multiple assets, going into that second bucket and understanding that this is where you really want to define correct instructions upon, the end of your journey.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the third bucket, which is the probate, we
Mhm.
just want to make sure that people understand that probate isn't bad, right?
It's not bad.
It's just a process that we have to go through. If for some reason, one, there's a disagreement, or two is that there's no instruction manual was left at the end of somebody's life. And now someone has to make that deciding factor of who the true beneficiaries are.
Yeah. I think the big thing with the will is, and probate, is that people think it does more than it does. I think that's the key there. Oh, I have a CARES in my will. But you did that 10 years ago, or, oh, I guess CARES wasn't here 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
9 years.
Sorry, wrong number.
Close.
But, it's been a few years since I did my will, and I have CARES in it. But they've forgotten that they're really not gonna have much go through probate. So again, consult with a professional who understands the interplay of the three buckets and guide you through it. But probate is not bad. Using a will to give to CARES is just as good as beneficiary and trusts.
Well, in closing, just want to let people know is if there is an opportunity or a conversation that they'd like to have of how they would like CARES to benefit from, their lifelong dreams that they've, accomplished over their term. Just reach out to us. And we not only do we have a brochure, we've got that now on the website. Our website is like this amazing instrument of information. They can learn that as well as just reaching out to us and walk you through those steps and get you in front of those professionals. Gene, thanks for sitting in with me today.
This has been a real treat for me. Thank you, Annette. Good to be here.
Awesome. We'll talk to you guys soon.